All right, in this video we're going to clone or propagate crepe myrtles. Very easy to actually do. There's two ways I really like to do it. We're in Florida, so Florida in January we call this winter. It really isn't cold. It's not cold at all, but a lot of the leaves have fallen off of the crepe myrtles and they've died. Most people, most of the things that you'll read online say to clone in the summer. Clone crepe myrtles in the summer, new growth, all that. Yes, that does work, but there's also another theory, and that's hardwood cuttings in the winter. Most people don't say to do it, but it works. So I'm going to show you two different ways to actually do it. First and foremost, in the trays, this is a 72 cell tray. So this, you can buy seed starter soil. I like to make my own. I make it with 5 parts sphagnum peat moss and 1 part perlite. I also use home compost that we've created. I use a little bit of that, but I also use like a 6-month all-purpose granular fertilizer mixed all in. I kind of mix it myself in a trash can. Choose how you do it. It's up to you. Now, what I like to do is I like to take a bucket. My bucket, you'll see a little water in here. I've dumped some, but what's in this water, I use probably a little overkill, but I like to use Nature's Source Professional Plant Food. In addition, I like to use a Dynagrow plant food. Basically, what I feel like this is going to keep my leaves alive long enough to get roots. And then I like to think, most importantly, a rooting concentrate. There's several out there. I like KLN, but you can choose which one you like. So that's what's in this water. We have 3 teaspoons of KLN rooting concentrate. We have a half of teaspoon of Dynagrow plant food, and 1 teaspoon of Nature's Source Professional plant food. Basically, they say to do 1 teaspoon for house plants. I like to think clones be that way because they don't have, I'm trying to get them to become a plant. And I put all of that in this water. Then I dump that same solution in the water, so when I go cut the plant from the tree, it's sitting, I like to think of it as a few different methods. 1, I keep it in water so it doesn't wilt and die. 2, we like to control our pests or our disease, but maybe we don't know. Maybe we don't know that we have an outbreak of whiteflies or what have you. So by soaking it in the water, I like to think that that's going to kill most of them off if I didn't have them controlled properly. In addition, I like to use Hormex rooting powder. They sell this variety pack here. It comes in 3 different strengths: number 1, number 3, and number 8. So number 1 is for easy to root plants. That's where crepe myrtle falls. Hormex has a really nice plant list on their website that talks about a lot of plants. Now, if they don't have the plants listed, there's an email me option. They'll respond. They say about 24 hours. In my experience, it's been about that. 24 business hours, they'll get back to me. So number 1, number 3, and number 8. Today we're using number 1. You'll notice that I put it in a cup. I like to put the rooting powder in a cup because I don't want to dip the plants in there. If there is any disease or any pests, I don't want that to get mixed into the batch. So I'll put it in a cup. I title it 1, 3, and 5, or 1, 3, and 8, excuse me. In addition, we have sterile disposable scalpels. I don't like to use them once unless it's not heavy use. If I do happen to use it again, I'll take a little cup of alcohol and dip it in it, sterilize it, but I want to make sure it's wiped completely clean before I go and use it. In addition, because we're talking about crepe myrtles, I'm almost doing my seasonal cutback of the crepe myrtle, and in addition, I'm going to take cuttings off of that cut. So I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone essentially. So you'll see that I have some shears and then some smaller to help me cut some of the branches down. I'm going to clean everything up with a disposable scalpel, but I like to make the initial cuts, especially on a big tree like that with something like these 2. Also, you'll see we have a mason jar here. I'm going to show you how to do cuttings in a mason jar. Then I'm also going to show you how to do them in soil with a humidity dome. Same concept, 2 different ways. All right, so I cut this limb down right from here. Basically a pretty long limb. Helps me prune it or cut it back for the season, but also gives me a lot of options as far as cloning. So every one of these limbs, I'm going to cut all the way down. I like it, so anything I do in the mason jars, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than in the humidity dome. I like to make most of my cuts about 8 to 10 inches. Now, if I'm going in a 7-inch humidity dome, I got to plan accordingly. I'm going to have it shorter, a lot less branches, but you'll see that this is a winter cutting. It has no leaves on it, where in the spring, summer, and even fall, it's going to be beautiful colored. So something like this, I'm going to put in a mason jar. I'm going to clean it up quite a bit. So once I do that, I'll show you what that looks like. And then for most of the ones that are going into the humidity dome, I'm going to go something like this, so I'll have plenty of room to cut off, make my angles, and then get it into the dome. All right, so this is what it looks like cut down. This is what I'm going to put in a mason jar. I like it to be a little bit bigger in the mason jar. Naturally, the mason jar is taller, but I like to leave a few branches on it. What you'll notice first when you put in the mason jar, you'll notice that you'll start getting a lot of green leaves. You'll see I have 2 mason jars, 5 plants in each jar. I leave some more limbs on these bigger ones than I would on the smaller ones. Smaller ones, I'm only looking for leaves if they have leaves. So in the summertime leaves, I'll leave 2, 3, 4 on there, just depending. In the wintertime, there's no leaves. So I'm gonna leave several branches to grow up. So this jar here, you'll notice has a little bit of white residue in it. That is with rooting powder. This one is without rooting powder, because remember, there is rooting concentrate. It's going to be in this jar for probably a month or more. So what I do, the last real step to completing this process is I'm going to put Ziploc bags. You'll see this is hefty. This is gallon-sized bags. I use the quarts too, so for the smaller cuttings, if I want to do it in a mason jar, I will put it in a quart size. I like these because they stand on their own, so that gives me more room. It's got a little pouch, if you will, here to straighten out so it could stand up on its own. All right, and the last step here, still to lock in or get that humidity. This is kind of put some napkins down if you're doing this on something you don't want to get wet, but I spray up in here just to get the humidity up. You see a lot of it's running out, and then I zip it up right to the neck of the jar. Open this up, and this is one done. I'll do the same thing for this second one. Also, if you notice there was writing on it, I like to write which tree. So I have several Crepe Myrtle trees. I like to write which one it came from, so I know which color it is, and I also like to document which one is rooting powder and which one's not. I also sometimes use tape to mark it, but it's really easy to write the date on here. It'll time stamp it for you, so you'll know exactly how long it takes. One last suggestion: if you're really interested in seeing what works, don't be afraid to try it. You know, it's like seasonings with food. The more you try, the more experience you get. You'll know what kind of works better. But keep a little notebook. I keep a little journal, if you will, and I write the dates that I do it, what I use, what nutrients I use, whether or not it's with rooting powder, how many I did, so I can track how many I have that succeeds. With Crepe Myrtles, I have really good results. It's quite good in both ways. The one thing that'll fool you with these jars, and I'll show you an older cutting, is you're gonna start getting green leaves in about a week's time. Those green leaves will make you think it's ready to come out of there, but there's no roots established. So be patient with it. Make sure you're seeing the roots, 1 to 2 inch roots, or any kind of white growths, white root-like growth. That tells you to go ahead and remove the bag and plant it in whatever pot size you want. All right, so this is Crepe Myrtles that I put in this jar about 2 to 3 weeks ago. So you see there's a lot of green leaves, but when you look down at the roots, or look down at the stems, still there's no roots. So if we tried to transition this into soil, you're probably going to see this die. One really important thing, you want to change your water on a weekly basis. I put that in that journal I was talking about, so I just can keep up when I did it, and I make sure I change my water out. I put the same water in after I change it. It's really quick, just dump it out and pour some new in. In addition, here's the small smaller size Crepe Myrtles, you know, I cut these down to small enough to fit in a 7-inch humidity dome. And I just wanted to show you what I do here. You know, I've shown you a complete tray except for one. So basically I just get my rooting powder, #1 for Hormex or whatever type you use. I put it on there generously, but I like to knock it off. I don't want it to be too wet because it makes my powder clump up in the cup. All right, now that I've got the powder all over the root, or excuse me, the cutting, I'm just gonna put it right down in the soil. I like the soil to be kind of firm packed, so it kind of goes in there really good. Straighten it if I need to adjust it. It's pretty stable. And the last step, of course, I water these in. So we'll just do that one. I'd already watered the rest of them in already. And the last step is I'm gonna spray it. Even though you don't see the leaves on here, you still need this spray to get the humidity up in the dome. Really important too, my water, it's a little different than the plant food. I only have KLN rooting concentrate or whatever rooting concentrate. I still use 3 teaspoons per gallon. And the last step is with the vents closed, I just put the humidity dome on. And if it doesn't fit tight, this one happens too, but if it doesn't fit tight, maybe take a piece of tape, masking tape, packing tape, or you can wrap it with cling wrap, whatever you choose. The whole point is to get the humidity up. Hope this helps.